So, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar today on tracking and reporting your digital marketing. Just a very quick introduction to HDK before we get started. We are a digital agency and we provide website design and marketing services to arts, cultural, and heritage organisations like yourselves and our clients, including National Theatre of Scotland, Birmingham Royal Ballet, Arts Council England and Alexandra Palace. And we do that to help them connect with their audiences and improve their results online. Just some quick personal introductions. I am Phoebe. I'm HDK's Client Relationship Manager. I am a white woman in her very early 30s. I have blonde hair, which I'm wearing up in a bun today, and I'm wearing a beige jumper and a beige scarf. So there's lots of beige going on. So as a client relationship manager, I work with all of our new clients to identify the best services for their organization. So for today's webinar, I am joined by Linus and Ali. So I will hand over to Linus first to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Phoebe. Hi, I'm Linus. I'm a web support developer here at HDK. So I do support for all our websites. I am a white man, also in my very early 30s, with a mustache and glasses, and I'm currently wearing a yellow jumper and a grey hat. And I will now pass you over to Ali.
Hi everyone, I'm Ali. I'm HDK's marketing coordinator. So I work with all of our clients here on their marketing campaigns. I'm a white woman in her 20s. I have long brown hair and I am wearing a sort of big cream knitted jumper. So we've all turned winter and toasty over here today.
Yes, it is quite cold in the office today. So if you've been to one of HDK's webinars before, we are going to be taking a slightly different approach to this one, just to make the most of everyone we've got here today and the expertise that we share in digital marketing. So first, Ali and Linus are going to spend around 15-20 minutes sharing some top line principles on strategy, tracking, and reporting. So with strategy, we're going to look at setting the right targets or key performance indicators, which we'll be referring to as KPIs for your organization. With tracking, we're going to be looking at some recommendations for tracking tools that were shared very kindly by our webinar community. And for reporting, we're going to be looking at some of the mainstays of effective reporting, as well as sharing some interesting insights on what organizations like yourselves have learned from their recent reports. So we've got some from a survey that we sent out, and also some of our clients have kindly shared those. We're then going to facilitate a discussion for 20 to 25 minutes by asking you 5 questions designed to stimulate useful insights on how everybody here today is currently tracking and reporting, because we know that hearing from other organizations is one of the most valuable things that you can do when it comes to learning new methods and techniques. But don't worry, we won't be putting anybody on the spot. Nobody's going to be forced to share anything. Those who want to share their ideas can do so. And those who are just here to listen and learn are also very welcome. So don't worry. Finally, we are going to ask you to complete a short survey to gather feedback on today's session. It really helps inform the way that we deliver these webinars and the topics that we cover in future. So with all that, we will be posting on social media. We have been posting on social media using the hashtag HDK webinar. If you would like to do so, we encourage you to use the hashtag as well, and we can repost you when we pick that up. And yeah, I will now pass over to Linus to kick off the first section on setting KPIs.
So I guess the first question is, how do you set appropriate KPIs or key performance indicators for your organization? Setting appropriate KPIs is essential for measuring the success of your digital marketing efforts. And I'm just going to talk through a few things to keep in mind when setting these KPIs. The first thing you need to do is start by clearly defining your objectives and goals. What are you trying to achieve with your digital marketing? Is it increased visitors, higher revenue, more engagement? After this, you have to identify your key metrics. So determine which metrics are the most relevant to measure your progress. So these metrics should directly reflect the success or failure of your objectives. For example, if your aim is to increase website traffic, relevant metrics would include the number of unique visitors, page views, bounce rates, stuff like that. The next thing you need to do is to consider your team. So you need to think about who will be using these KPIs and tailor them to meet the needs of your internal team. So your execs might be looking for KPIs on sales, whilst your marketing team might be looking for KPIs on growth and engagement. You also need to set clear benchmarks. So consider historical data and industry benchmarks when setting your targets or KPIs. If you're a museum, you may want to benchmark your KPIs against other museums with a similar subject matter and in the same geographic region. And we're going to talk about some benchmarking software later in the webinar. You also need to establish your data sources. So before even finalizing your KPIs, you need to ensure that you have access to the reliable data sources to inform your decisions and track these metrics. So these could be sources such as digital marketing platforms, Google Analytics, or even ticketing software. Then you also need to define your reporting frequency. So you need to determine how often you will report and review your KPIs. So this could be daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly. It kind of depends on the nature of your objectives and the availability of the data. And then the final thing you need to consider when setting appropriate KPIs is to regularly review and adjust. So you need to continuously monitor your KPIs and assess whether you're on track to achieve your goals. If you're not meeting your targets, consider making adjustments to your strategies and tactics. And remember that setting and using KPIs is an ongoing process. It requires regular evaluation and adjustment in order to remain effective in measuring progress and driving your organization's desired outcomes. I'm now going to hand you over to Ali, who is going to discuss how to make your KPIs a little more effective.
Thank you, Linus. So now we know kind of the basics of how to set KPIs. We want to think about how you can make them as effective as possible. So the best set targets are those that are extremely intentional. So it's important to ask yourself, what are the most important outcomes or aims of my campaign? It's very easy to kind of fall into the trap of setting yourself either too ambitious or perhaps, a little bit under-researched quantitative targets so that you have a set of numbers safely at your disposal. And while we do, of course, need numbers on things like engagements, views, link clicks, etc., what's most important is being clear on your aims so that you're getting the most out of what you've chosen to measure. So we have an example to share with you today from our client, We the Curious, based in Bristol. If you came to our last webinar on short form video content, you might remember us talking about our work with them on TikTok. So we've been working with We the Curious for some time now, helping them to launch their TikTok channel, which went live in July. And KPIs played an important role in their TikTok strategy, particularly as the platform was a venture into uncharted territory for them. So the process started with one clear aim: to spark curiosity amongst young people and to encourage conversations around all things science. From there, we could determine exactly how we want to measure this aim. So this included some quantitative targets, such as measuring awareness and reach through number of views, followers, and pieces of content posted. But this also included qualitative targets. So in line with We the Curious's aim, a key target was tracking how many conversations were generated about science per month. And we defined a conversation as a user comment on a science-related element on one of their videos that was then followed by a We the Curious reply. We also set targets to respond to every comment and to reply creatively to comments. So whether that was through a video reply, a duet, a stitch, or a repost. And as you can see here, we have some lovely science-related conversations happening in the comments. So these targets were somewhat less straightforward, as you know, they're not quantifiable in the same way like a number of views or followers is, but they were just as important to set as they're intrinsically connected to We the Curious's objectives for their channel, which was to engage young people in science and to generate conversations around science. So while they're not directly comparable to competitors or other organizations' benchmarks, they are really unique to We the Curious and provide clear guidelines for measuring their success on TikTok. So we're going to move on to tracking now. And to do that, I'm going to pass back over to Linus.
Thank you, Ali. Very kind. So earlier this month, we sent out an email to our webinar community asking you all to share your favorite tools for tracking and reporting. So thank you, everyone, for your suggestions. What we've done is we've collated them into a list along with what each tool or platform is good for and any associated costs. And we'll be sharing the slides with you in about a week or so, along with the recording, so you don't have to worry about noting them down just now. The first platform I want to talk about is Google Analytics 4. So this is really good for broad website analytics, and it offers incredibly detailed metrics on user journeys and conversions. They also do a plugin for WordPress called Google Analytics Site Kit. And again, this allows you to use Google's range of tools from a single dashboard. And it's a little more user-friendly, I would say, than core Google Analytics. And these are both free. Next one on the list there is Hotjar. So this is good for website engagement tracking, and it's good for reviewing and improving customer journeys. And I think they offer a free version as well as one that I think reaches about £150 per month. The next three I want to touch on is Spectrix, PatronBase, and HubSpot. So these are CRM tools or customer relationship management platforms, and they offer detailed tracking and reporting of sales, memberships, donations, and it's all in one place. Now, these are all come with bespoke pricing, so you'd have to reach out to these companies if you want to get a quote from any of them. The next one I want to touch on is Meta Events Manager, and this is good for tracking and optimizing conversions from meta ads, understanding user journeys across ads and your website. Meta Ads Manager, it's good for building custom target audiences and gathering highly specific data on them. And Google Ads, it's like Meta, it's end-to-end user tracking, and it also offers a custom reporting dashboard. Now, those three, Meta Events Manager, Meta Ads Manager, and Google Ads, they are all free as well, but you do need to spend a little bit of money for the ads. The final one I want to touch on is MailChimp. So this is good for specifically tracking and reporting results from email marketing campaigns. And they also have some really good audience segmenting tools on there. Now, I think they offer a free version, and I think it goes up to something like £290 per month. And I'm going to pass you over to Ali now for the next ones.
Thank you, Linus. So we also have, obviously, our native social media platform insights as ways of tracking. So Meta, TikTok, Instagram, X, which is obviously formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube. And I'm sure you've probably all had some experience in some of these, or maybe all. These are mostly good for just gathering those top line metrics and whatever audience demographic data that they provide. Obviously, they all vary between them, but they're all free and they come with the app. Our next is, sorry, Phoebe. Slide, please. Thank you. Is Hootsuite, which is great for cross-platform tracking and reporting. And it includes both website and social media. You can have customizable reports, as well as it offers competitor or sort of peer benchmarking. And Hootsuite ranges from sort of £89 to £249 per month. So I think there's a tier there. And then we have Digital, which offers highly detailed tracking and reporting with the option to integrate with your CRM, ticketing, and e-commerce platforms. Again, it's bespoke pricing, so you would need to reach out to them for kind of offerings on that. Next, we have Eventbrite. We obviously use Eventbrite to all come here today. And in terms of tracking, they offer reporting on event ticket sales with marketing channel breakdowns, as well as audience demographics. It's free, but it also can kind of, again, have tiered packages up to £129 per month. Finally, we have SEMrush, which offers social media and SEO reporting, as well as peer or competitor research. And it's priced between £105 to, I think, £406 per month, quite specific. Social Blade, which again offers you analytics to your peer or kind of competitor accounts, whatever you want to see. And it's free, as well as being upwards of sort of £80 per month. And then finally, we have Brandwatch or Falcon. And that offers social media tracking and reporting, audience research, and social listening. And the pricing for Brandwatch is bespoke. So again, you need to contact them for that. But don't worry if you didn't get any of these down. As Linus said, we will be providing a list of those. So if you missed any. While we all have you here, if there are any more tools or platforms that you use for tracking and reporting that we haven't yet mentioned, please do drop them in the chat now, along with what you use them for. I think we've already had one already, which is lovely. So I'll just pause for a minute to give you a chance to share any recommendations that you guys have. I can see we have Microsoft Clarity, which is like Hotjar, but fully free. So that's great. As well as Metricool. Okay, well, I will leave the chat open for any more recommendations that you guys want to send in. And if you see anything, do note it down. Right, okay, I think we'll move on to reporting. Linus, I'm passing back to you now.
Thank you so much. So I just want to touch a little bit on reporting. So effective reporting is crucial for monitoring progress towards your goals and making informed, data-driven decisions. So to ensure that your reports are useful and actionable, you should follow these principles. The first one being clarity and simplicity. So keep the reporting clear and straightforward. Use simple language, avoid jargon or technical terms that might confuse your audience. You also need to make sure that you maintain consistency in reporting formats, terminology, and timeframes. So this makes it easier for stakeholders to compare performance across different periods and understand the data presented. The next thing to consider is trends and historical data. So include historical data to show trends over time. Understanding how KPIs have changed can provide valuable insights into the effectiveness of your digital marketing. For example, you can look back on what has worked well historically, and you can prioritize this content for your next campaign. You also need to provide contextual information. So provide any context for your KPIs. Explain the factors or events that may have influenced the data and highlight any actions taken or planned based on those results. So as an example here, did someone with a high following repost your content? Or did you run an ad that drove website traffic higher than usual? The final thing to consider is actionable insights. So your reports should not just present data, but also provide actionable insights. You need to explain what the data means and suggest strategies or actions to improve performance if necessary. So by following these principles, you can create reports that effectively communicate performance, support informed decision-making, and helps drive improvements in your organizations. And I think Ali is going to share some industry insights for us now. Thank you.
I am indeed. So we've pulled together a number of insights on tracking and reporting from across the arts, culture, and heritage industry to share with you today, so that we can have a really nice collaborative session and learn from each other. So our first insight is from our client, the Bowes Museum, and they are based in County Durham, and they're sharing a recent learning from a Meta Ads campaign. So they said, we recently ran a Facebook ad for our open day event and used a video of Joseph, one of our colleagues, for it. What was different about the data behind this ad is that the male audience was almost double than our usual female engagement with similar posts or ads. This was probably because of the speaker in the video and the subject he was speaking about. It was a very interesting find. I think this is really useful because we know that the algorithm favors human faces, but it's really interesting to see how the gender of those shown in content can actually shift your audience patterns. So next up, we have our client Romber, and they've shared what they struggle with on GA4. They've said, if the events on GA4 aren't properly set up or organized, it can present us with spoiled data, i.e. inaccurate numbers. This can make it a bit confusing when reporting on the overall user journey, which is supposed to tell us what needs to be improved in a purchase process, for example. I think this is comforting for us all to know that we're all kind of facing the same challenges with the systems we use, and also a very helpful tip to kind of look out for how those events are set up so that you don't end up with any sort of spoiled data. Our next shared learning is from an organization that would like to remain anonymous, but they've shared performance insights from their social media analytics. They've said, when observing our social media content analytics, one of the key findings is that people-focused content generates greater engagement. This provides good insight into what audiences respond to and how there is a desire for content that can resonate with or that feels personal. Again, I think it's really useful to see just how important including human-centered content is, particularly featuring faces. Our brains are wired to seek out human faces, and with that, the social media algorithms are as well. So that's really interesting insight from their reporting. Our next share is from Trinity Laban, who are also an HDK client, and they've shared a really great perception from their social media performance. Although sometimes the likes and engagement may not be as high as one would like or had thought, often looking at the number of saves is a good indication of the quality of interactions. If there is a high number of saves on a post, but not that many likes, we would still deem this as a successful post as it has clearly hit the target audience, quality over quantity. I think this is a really great learning. You know, we're all kind of faced with the pressure to post in high volume. So it's always really valuable to see through reports that actually the quality of your content is what can really drive engagement. And finally, we have some knowledge to share from our client, Birmingham Royal Ballet. And this is a really nice insight into the sort of power of tone of voice. So they've said, a recent learning on community management is to increase engagement using an appropriate tone of voice. As a bare minimum, we would engage with comments and messages by liking and replying where necessary. But over the last year or so, we have made a conscious effort to develop a consistent and friendly tone of voice on social media, and we have ensured that messages, tags, and comments are replied to using this tone of voice. This has dramatically increased our average engagements on Instagram, which was our main focus. And now we are rolling this out onto other platforms to see if it has the same effect. This is a really, insightful share from Birmingham Royal Ballet on the effectiveness of good community management and really being intentional with your organizational tone of voice. And again, it's through those reports where you as Linus was saying, you give that kind of context and you provide those actionable insights that we're now seeing how they're rolling it onto other platforms. So that's great. And hopefully, after hearing kind of these collection of comments and learnings, you have a few new ideas to take away or have thought about other ways to look at your own insights. But I also hope that these have provided some reassurance that we're all facing a lot of the same challenges when it comes to things like understanding what makes content successful or what our audiences want, or platforms changing their analytics and issues with data availability.
Fab. Thank you so much, Ali. So now that we've covered some of the key principles of setting KPIs, tracking and reporting, and hearing from some insights from within the organization, we would love to gather some insights from the group today. So we're going to begin the discussion now. And we're going to ask you 5 questions and encourage you to share your thoughts on each. You can do so via the chat or video, just audio if you prefer, whatever's most comfortable for you. And again, there's no pressure, but we're just super keen to get a bit of a lively discussion going today. So whether you think your insights are useful or not, please do share them. And we've probably got just under 5 minutes per question if we need. So the first question that I would like you to answer for us today is, what metrics or key performance indicators do you measure, and why are they important for your organization? I know that we all measure a vast variety of metrics, so I don't necessarily expect you to go into every single one of those, but I suppose just a case of a sense of the kinds of metrics that you track and why you track them. So, do you have a particular priority right now? And if so, what are the metrics that you're tracking to measure them? We'll just pause for a moment to allow everybody to leave their responses. Thank you, Rachel. So we'll begin with this one. So Rachel from the SPAB says that social media engagements are a bigger one for us than impressions. Quality over quantity, as always. Yeah, absolutely. I think this comes back to what Ali shared about We the Curious and Birmingham Royal Ballet, in that those quality interactions were much more important than what some people call vanity metrics, which is things like followers and impressions. Thank you, Rachel. Is there anybody else who would like to share some of the metrics that they track? If you'd like to just turn your microphone on, that would be great. Or comment in the chat, whatever your preference is. And this can be across digital marketing, website, whatever it is that you're tracking with your digital marketing. Thank you, Courtney. So Courtney says that they use Meta to track engagement and links to the box office, and you report on those monthly. So presumably those ticket sales and awareness of box office opportunities is a priority for you, and therefore you focus on driving engagement and driving clicks through to the website to track that, which is great. Thank you, Courtney. We will hold for another minute or so and invite you all to share your insights, and then we will move on to the next question. Oh, we have another Courtney. Thank you, Courtney Green, this time. So Courtney tracks conversion links through Meta and Google Ads to event sales. And I imagine that this is something that a lot of you are tracking with, whether you're a venue or a touring company. Event sales are always very important to the bottom line. So it's really useful to know how your digital marketing is influencing those things, what works well, what doesn't work well, and where to focus your digital marketing spend for better return on investment, which is a phrase that I'm sure a lot of you are including in your internal meetings at the moment. Thank you, Courtney. We'll hold just for a moment longer, and then we will move on to question 2. Great. Okay. So, oh, hang on. We've got another one. So Sarah says that they use MailChimp for an e-zine each month with sector news events, etc., and track which links are most clicked by their members. It can be a very interesting insight into what's interesting to people, and also any key issues that we use as action points for future needs, for instance, funding and bursaries. Absolutely. I think when we look at HDK's newsletters that we send, you start to learn, okay, what's the content that people are most interested in, and therefore where should we place that? Is it a case of placing it at the top so they can get what they're looking for quickly, or do we want to place it further down so that they see the things that we want them to see before they go to what it is that they're really looking for? All of these insights are really useful to educate your further choices with your digital marketing. Anna shared that they use metrics relating to returning customers versus new bookers using Tessitura analytics, which I'm sure is something that's also available on Spectrix and other ticketing platforms as well. And I suppose that's useful for knowing the loyalty that you're generating, and I suppose the effectiveness of your digital marketing for gathering new audiences as well. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to move on to question 2 now. So you've shared some of the metrics that you focus on. How do you record them? How do you record these metrics or KPIs when you're tracking and reporting? So do you use a spreadsheet that you manage manually? Or do you use another system or platform? What works best for you and why? So perhaps for Anna, it might be that you use Tessitura for your reporting. But yeah, just great to get a sense of the different platforms that people use, so that, you know, there might be some people here using something that other people could benefit from. Or it might just be that it's a simple thing that we can approach with, you know, a manual spreadsheet. If everybody would love to comment with what they use, that would be great, so that we can kind of share and compare today and maximize the learnings that we can all get. Shirley says that they use a spreadsheet that they update monthly. It can use that to compare and report. Sometimes I think it is the simple solutions that work best. So things like Excel or Google Sheets. If you identify the metrics that you want to track, then you know, you can create your own custom tables and have your own record that's hosted natively that you can look back on and compare performance month by month or week by week, however it is that you track. Courtney also uses a spreadsheet, so each department can easily see what they need, and it's easier to track past data and input comments to see where spikes happen in response to marketing activity. So this comes back to the importance of contextual information. So if there was a particular post or a particular week, however granular you go, that worked really well, what was it that you were doing at that time, and how can you replicate that, and vice versa for those poor performing posts, which is a bit of a mouthful to say. Again, Justine uses a spreadsheet tracking monthly and quarterly, as well as Naomi, who updates it at the end of each month in Google Sheets, so that it can be accessed and viewed by various colleagues. We absolutely find that Google Sheets works really well for sharing and adding notes. Also, Emma uses a spreadsheet to record social media engagement and updates it weekly. Sarah uses a fairly basic Excel workbook to monitor change in followers, engagement, etc. And also for specific projects, and like the e-zine, as Sarah said earlier, and website analytics. Would love to know the best way to actually utilize this data. And we've got, I think, question number 5 will go into this. So great that that's something that you're keen to explore. So for question number 3, how do you set realistic but ambitious targets that balance what you've achieved before and what you'd like to achieve in future? So this is a case of how do you ensure that your digital marketing is continually progressing and that the targets you're setting are ambitious while being based on data and what's, you know, actually possible for you to achieve. So it'd be great to hear how everybody here today sets targets and why.
I'm just going to chime in with an HDK target if I can. We have our TikTok channel, and we don't have too much of a strategy behind it, but we decided that we wanted to kind of tighten that up a little bit and really dedicate a bit more time to it. So our target was to consistently post at least one TikTok a week for the rest of the year, which I know doesn't sound like much, but just having that target has helped us be more accountable. I can't say that we 100% post once every single week, but we've gotten a lot better at it, and we've already seen some really great growth and engagement from doing that. And like I said, I think targets are really great for that accountability when it's something like number of posts.
Thank you, Ali. And Courtney has commented that they use SMART targets as a way of evaluating KPIs based on previous trends, planned events, and targeted audience development goals. SMART targets, I can't remember what the SMART stand for. So let me just have a very quick Google just in case anybody else is unsure. So SMART targets are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So it all kind of comes back to those principles of how to set effective KPIs that Linus shared at the beginning of the session. We'll hold for 10 or so more seconds, and then we'll move on to the next question. So if you do have any insights that you'd like to share on how you set your targets, please do share them. Anna says that some of their targets are set based on wider organizational priorities or objectives. So an example, to increase new bookers or improve audience retention. So I suppose that's about setting targets that measure how effectively your digital marketing is supporting an increase in new bookers and improved audience retention, which is very important, I think. A lot of us are working to bigger organizational targets and often have to show that the work that we're doing is feeding into them and supporting them. So yeah, absolutely great to make sure that those are included. Okay, so question 4. Have you faced any obstacles when it comes to sharing your reports in a way that's meaningful to the wider organization? If so, how are you overcoming them? So sometimes when we have conversations with clients, they can struggle with, within the marketing department, digital marketing department, however your organization's set up, we have to compile reports and often sometimes share them with the wider organization to secure buy-in for what you're doing and get people on board, and sometimes convince them that you need to do a particular marketing activity, whether it's launch on TikTok or run a number of ads. It's usually about time and resources. So sometimes our clients have faced hurdles when it comes to securing that buy-in from within their organization. And I know that that can be quite a common problem when you are working with different departments. So everyone who's here today, so have you personally faced any obstacles when it comes to sharing your reports and getting that buy-in? And if so, how have you overcome them, or how are you overcoming them now? I think what Anna said probably ties into that quite nicely. because I think if you're showing that a particular piece of activity supports the wider organizational aims, then it is, not that you should necessarily feel that you have to justify the work that you do, but it does justify that effort and show that your department is helping to support that bigger picture aim, which is great. And that's why it's important for strategies to work from that kind of top-down approach and start with the bigger picture and go into the granular so that you can say with data that we are supporting that aim being achieved. So if anybody here would like to share their insights, I would love to hear from you if you'd like to speak. I think that would be really nice to get a bit more conversation going. But if you are more comfortable with the chat, then please do stick to that. But yeah, feel free to turn on your camera or turn on your mic and share your insights in getting buy-in when it comes to sharing your reports with the wider organization.
Just have a little point to chime in with in response to this question. It's not quite the same as sharing reports in a way that's meaningful, but I think this kind of question sort of ties into what I was talking about earlier in terms of the importance of qualitative data and qualitative targets. I think sometimes when we just present a set of numbers, we don't always know how much that holds, and that's where if we're talking about something like social media, for example, qualitative targets can be, or qualitative data in your reports can actually be really effective in boosting those numbers and boosting what's behind it. So for example, if you've reported on a certain amount of comments per month, keeping track and including some of those really high quality comments and engagements is really useful to show what kind of connection has been there. Has someone left an emoji, or have they left a couple of lines about how much they loved coming to that show, or how beautiful they think this photography is, or whatever it is. And I think that's something we talk to our clients a lot about, is really storing as many as they can of those really brilliant qualitative data and comments somewhere in a spreadsheet or something, so that they can also feed into the reports and provide more context to the numbers, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes it can be quite easy to almost take the numbers for granted, or not for granted, but kind of just take them at face value. And I think seeing the human side of those interactions and of those positive outcomes, or negative, hopefully positive, can be really useful for kind of seeing the real meaning in what those numbers mean. Jodie has also commented that they are relatively new to marketing for an arts organisation and have to report for a board of trustees. Jodie would love to see an example of a spreadsheet and asks, where can you find something like this? Your previous manager didn't track this, so you're basically starting from scratch. But would it help to assure the trustees that marketing is effective? Yes, I think systems are so important when it comes to obviously any department, but marketing in particular, where the work that we do can be tracked in such granular detail. So it's figuring out what to track, how to track it, how frequently to. So Jodie, if anybody has any links that they're happy to share, I appreciate that there's probably confidential information. But we use a lot of tracking sheets. I imagine it wouldn't be too difficult to share a template, perhaps, for a tracking sheet in Google Sheets. So we will share that with the follow-up materials from this webinar, along with the slides and the recording. And hopefully that will be useful to not just Jodie, but other people here today. So our final question is, how have you used tracking and reporting to steer your direction on a new platform or with a new content type? So for example, on TikTok, Reels, Threads, or X. Let's see. We do have an answer from Christy to the last question, so I'm just going to read through that. If you do have an answer for this one, please do get started on commenting, and I will read out Christy's response. So Christy says, this is a sort of answer. So to justify your communications activity to funders, it often seems like the bigger, the better. So vanity metrics reign supreme. And that's where a lot of their limited energy goes. So a challenge is to put more effort into the qualitative metrics that you've mentioned that are actually beneficial for us. So an example would be tracking the impact of press activity. So how can you realistically judge the impact of an article about your organization in a national newspaper? Is it useful to say they have millions of followers on social media? Maybe not. And this absolutely comes back down to knowing your audience for your reporting. So it is difficult because I think, as you've identified, either, a marketing or comms executive would most likely be interested in things like engagement and the qualitative stuff, whereas the board or trustees or executives might really just want to know about the top line, things like followers, things like ROI. So it's about finding a balance between including metrics that kind of cover all bases. But again, resources and time are the age-old challenge in this industry. So if anybody has any solutions on that, then I'm sure that they would be much welcomed by Christy and others. But going back to question 5, if anybody has any insights on how you've used data from your tracking and reporting to steer your direction on something like TikTok or Instagram Reels, perhaps you found that a particular type of content worked really well, so you altered your strategy to follow that. Perhaps you realized that your audience had a specific demographic and you decided to cater your content on that specific platform or in that specific content type to that audience demographic. It would be great to hear how essentially reporting has informed your work in digital marketing with some recent examples. So do feel free to share. While you do that, I'm going to pour myself another glass of water. Okie doke. So for this one, I think it might be worth, I'm just going to ask Ali if there's anything in particular. You gave a case study on We the Curious and how they looked at qualitative data as well as quantitative. Is there any major learnings that they had that kind of steered the direction of the kind of content that they're posting on TikTok?
Yeah, I think one of the things that they noticed pretty quickly was similar to what we've discussed with a couple of other insights that we've shared today from our other clients is, and this is quite social media specific, but that human faces and humans in general really make the content sing, and that's what people are really interested in, and I think that they found that in a lot of their content that includes their team and their faces, their lovely faces, and being friendly and being kind of the focal point has really driven a lot of the kind of views and engagement as well, which has made it clearer that they want to continue featuring their team members in their content. And that's just a small learning. I'm trying to think if I have other examples. I'll have a think while I think we've just had a comment.
That's all, I think that's really useful. Thank you, Ali. Courtney said that they are realizing through their tracking and reporting how a mixture of lo-fi and hi-fi content. I'm not sure what that means, the lo-fi and hi-fi content. So if you could comment just to define those, then that would be great. but realizing how a mixture of lo-fi and hi-fi content performs on socials has meant that we have increased our more ad hoc content. So not just focusing on our glossy promo material to increase engagement and brand messaging. So it's not just sales pushing. So I think, yeah, I imagine this means you're more kind of professionally taken photos, graphics, videos, and then the more kind of informal, on the fly kind of content that you're talking about. Anna has been analysing how concert or event specific content performs against more evergreen content, which they find works well on TikTok and Instagram Reels. That's really useful to know, I suppose. Sometimes specificity is key to engagement. So it's good to know that you're seeing that follow through in the post performance. Another use of tracking and reporting from Courtney is that also using programs like Hootsuite to schedule social posts and monitor them when the most popular times are for posting. It also helps with setting targets for how many times to post a week, etc. That's also something that's really important. You know, we're not just looking at what's performing well and what's not performing well. It's also how can we post in a way that is going to maximize our performance. So whether it's posting daily, posting weekly, multiple times a day, understanding that and the time to post is all a really useful kind of learnings that you can take from your tracking and reporting. So a final note, if you enjoyed today's webinar, do check out our last 2 sessions of the year. So in November, we are going to be looking at how to improve your website user experience. And in December, for our end of year kind of special, we are looking at website and digital marketing trends for 2024. And the program for next year is also coming very soon. So do keep an eye out for that. If you would like to hear more marketing tips and insights, project updates from our clients, and hear about upcoming webinars, sign up to HDK's quarterly webinar. Ali is going to share the link to the webinars and the newsletter sign up in the chat now, along with our email address. So if you are interested in working with HDK on your website design, then please do get in touch. We would love to hear from you. And with that, we will close today's webinar. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We shared some really useful insights and you shared some really useful insights on tracking and reporting your digital marketing. So thank you very much for your input and we look forward to seeing you at another webinar soon.